Welcome to PWS United, a podcast for the Prader-Willi syndrome community, brought to you by PWSA USA. This podcast gives the latest news in research, advocacy, and family support by bringing together staff, volunteers, PWS treatment specialists, biotech and pharmaceutical representatives, caregivers, family members, and individuals with PWS. Our goal is to share education, awareness, and resources with those living with PWS and their supporters. Join us in our mission to enhance the quality of life and empower those affected by Prader-Willi syndrome.
Welcome to today's episode of PWS United, where we are celebrating Direct Support Professional Week. This week is all about honoring the incredible individuals who dedicate their time, their energy, and their hearts to supporting individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome. Direct support professionals are the unsung heroes who walk alongside individuals and families every single day. They're helping them to create safe environments, they're encouraging independence, and building meaningful lives. Their work requires patience, compassion, creativity, and above all else, love. Today, we're so honored to be joined by three amazing DSPs who will share their experiences, their stories, and their insights. We'll hear about the joys, the challenges, and the powerful impact of being a part of the PWS community. So grab a seat, settle in, and join us in celebrating these extraordinary professionals who truly make a difference. Well, thank you guys so much for being here, especially during Direct Support Professional Week, when you guys should all actually be out doing all the things that bring you joy and celebrating what you do. Why don't we start by having you guys introduce yourselves?
I'm Seamus. Currently, I'm on the maintenance team, but I was previously DSP in the adults division and TSS in the children's.
Great. What agency?
Latham Centers.
Thank you.
So my name is Jessica. I have been working with individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome since 2012. I have been with AME Community Services since 2013. Left briefly in 2019, got married and moved away, moved back to the area, and was able to have the opportunity to return to AIM in 2024 of October. So I am still currently there, and I've been at the same house, I want to say, since 2014, so quite a while.
That's amazing.
I'm Adeline. I work with Latham, and I first started out as an intern last summer working on the floor as a DSP and also in ed. But then now I've come back to Latham and I work in adults and I work as a behavior technician.
Very nice. Well, welcome. I love that you guys all have different backgrounds also, which is very cool. A little bit of my background and why this is so important to me is I started my career as a DSP many years ago. And I worked in a lot of different settings. I worked with teenage moms. I worked in a nursing home. But the bulk of my career was working with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And then 15 years specifically with individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome. And I will tell you from my experience, being a DSP was hands down the most rewarding job I've ever had in my life. It was incredible. And part of what we'll talk about today is also how difficult it is to make a career out of being a DSP, given the lack of reimbursement and the difficulty in getting increased salaries. So thank you guys so much for being here. Can you guys tell me a little bit about what drew you to work with the PWS community? Did you know anything about Prader-Willi syndrome before coming into your roles?
Not until orientation, no.
I also hadn't heard about it before, but I was a psych major, so I was looking to work more within that field, and I found Latham.
I did not know anything about it. I had a friend who worked at the group home, and they were short-staffed, and they were just looking to recruit people, and so that's how I got introduced to it.
I think that's pretty common. There's not a lot of people who come into the space having heard of Prader-Willi syndrome before, but it is pretty unique, as you guys know. Can you tell me a little bit about what made you stay? So when I was in as a residential director, one of the things I would tell staff during orientation is, working with individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome isn't for everyone. And that's okay. We had opportunities if it wasn't what they wanted to do or where they were really excelling. We could place them in different settings where they weren't working with people at the PWS. It does take a special person. So what makes you guys stay?
I think the bad days are bad, but the good days are what keep me coming back. It's not like anything else that you've experienced. Being around people that just, I don't know, it's just very special. And that's what made me come back.
I love that, and I couldn't agree more.
And there's a lot of trust that goes into it as well between both the clients and the staff. And just being a part of that is a very fulfilling mission.
I would say also the relationships that you build, right? The good times that we do have. I mean, even when I left the house that I've worked at for a long time, they came to my wedding. They're very much involved in, wanting to be a part of that. I also liked the change to 245D. So being able to create and have those conversations and really listen to what their interests were, it's just been really eye-opening to be able to support with Prader-Willi and see how they actually can thrive and what the expectations are, and then just to see them build these outside of the house relationships with people within the community. I think that's the most special to see, and they're kind of proud when they're like, "Yep, this is my staff. They get to come with me," and it's really, really fun to see.
I love that. Thank you. We talk a lot about the impact that staff have on the individuals that they're supporting. What I found was that was 100% the case. But what I was shocked by was the impact that people with PWS ended up having on me. And I'm sure others have experienced that. So if you have, would you be willing to share a moment or something that you found really rewarding or meaningful through working with people with PWS?
This is also touching upon what was said earlier about like the relationships that are built within like both the staff and clients. I do a lot of theater on the side, and I actually had multiple of my coworkers come to see it. But one of the more amazing moments was actually some of the clients in the adults division had come to see my play with one of their staff members, and it was like I didn't even know they were there until like the show ended, and then I walked back in just to get something, and they were just standing right there, and they're like, "Hey, Seamus," and I'm just like, "Oh my god, like you guys came to see my show."
So special.
Yeah, no, like the support all around, it is always there. I mean, not everything goes how we always plan it, but everyone is part of the team.
I think no matter what was going on during my day or like how I come into work, the minute I see the clients and the minute I start talking with them, it's like the rest of the world doesn't really exist. It's like it's just I'm at work, I'm with them. Everything that was bothering me before is just kind of gone.
It's amazing how they can have that kind of impact.
Yeah.
It's like a mental shift. You're in or you're out.
Yeah. And you just alluded to this a little bit, Adeline. There are challenges that come with supporting people with PWS and living with PWS. And we talk a lot about or focus mostly on kind of those restrictions, the food security pieces, the rigidity and structure around routines. What I've heard from some folks is that those things make it really difficult to help build some independence and find that line of dignity of risk, but still also help people live meaningful, fulfilling lives. And what I find is the most people who say those things are people who are on the outside, not actually doing the work. I didn't necessarily find that to be as much of a struggle, but can you guys speak to whether or not that's a challenge that you guys face?
I work pretty closely with the behavior support plans right now. And I will say there are days where like that is you're just gonna encounter it. Like you can't really avoid the behaviors, but it's not really what you remember or walk away from. Like it's not really what defines them. It's just like a moment where they have you just let it pass and then it's done.
It's never
Moments.
personal.
We all have challenging moments as well. And it's accepted when we do it, but it's frowned upon when, it's somebody that we're supporting. So I love that you can look at that, especially from a behavioral perspective and being part of the behavioral team as it's a moment and we move on.
Yeah, and I feel like they too I kind of laugh when I make a mistake sometimes because I'm like, "Man, they are smart and they are tricky." And I've been doing it for how long, and I still get caught in it, but they are trying to be creative to get the things that they feel like they need, right? And they're not doing it because of any reason towards me. It's all because they have this food drive. They feel like they need XYZ, or they saw a commercial of Dairy Queen and how are they going to get it? And it's actually very impressive sometimes how they can successfully do it. And I've got caught in this trap recently where I'm like, whoops, my bad, but you got great job. I'm very impressed.
Or it's also like they're if you really look at the base of it, they have the same feelings, the same emotions. They're just processing it slightly different. And if you look through it at that lens, you start to relate to them a lot. Like a lot of the kids, like I'll be getting into like an argument with them, and then I'll settle in and I'll walk away and do my own thing for a second. I'll just sit there and think about it. Like, you know what? If I was younger, I probably would have reacted almost similarly. And so it's humbling, I guess, sometimes the work that we do here. It's very humbling.
Very much so. I used to joke with my team that if, some of the folks who are really skilled at getting access to things or getting over, for lack of a better term, getting over on staff, if they could use those skills for good, we could, have world peace and all sorts of amazing things because they're very, very talented in those areas. But what I think I've also found over the years is you can transfer those talents into other areas and really see people blossom and grow. Have you guys experienced that at all?
I think COVID really played a role in some of this, right? Like we were so into our routine and the structure. And I wasn't at the house during COVID, but I wondered about them. I wondered how they were doing. The day program shut down. And when I came back, they all have these different schedules now and work at the Y and work at Save. And I'm like, what is going on? You guys have like a whole life that I never even knew about. So I think COVID actually was a turning point when it came to opportunities, because also the workforce, workplaces, they need to hire people. It's just there's more opportunity now. And I think people are realizing, oh, they do have the skill set to do XYZ. And depending on the population, they probably can relate better to kids at the YMCA, or they can have this common interest where they actually are doing a better job than somebody who just is trying to make a paycheck.
Great point.
Yeah, you could say it was almost like a wake up call. The panic of the world set them in motion to wanting to do something themselves.
I think it's also when you remove a barrier that's causing like a lot of anxiety for them, such as food, then you realize like they are incredibly intelligent people. Like even though they live with intellectual disability, when they put their mind to something, they can do it. And I do agree, they can relate to people in ways that other people can't.
Hmm. You guys have all had some experience working outside of the PWS population as well. And one of the things we know about supporting people with PWS is that the care is complex. There's a lot of moving parts, and it requires a tremendous amount of collaboration within the medical team, the DSP team, the behavioral team, if you have day program or employment support staffs, all of that coordination is really necessary to help ensure that people thrive. The collaboration is really, really important, and it doesn't include just all of the people within your organization. It also includes working with families, or if there is an outside employer, or if in the case of children's programs, working with the schools and outside therapists and that sort of thing. What have you found to be the best tool in your toolkit to really help ensure that that collaboration happens?
I was taking a course that kind of spoke to this. I do think sometimes parents or guardians are really hard to work with, especially when trying to implement something. But then also taking their perspective of like, this is someone they care so much about. This is like their relative, their like personal, they have a personal connection to this person. So of course they're gonna have hesitations, or they're gonna be more rigid in what they're okay with and not okay with. So I think taking that into account really helps.
I agree with that. I think we used to say to our staff that the decision to place your child in residential care or a residential school is a decision that many of us don't ever have to make. And no one wants to make that choice, that it is so, so difficult. You're taking what you love most in the world and then saying, I'm going to trust people I don't know to do a good job. And I can't imagine how difficult that is for families. But when you're living it day to day as a DSP, sometimes you forget that perspective. So I love that you're thinking from that perspective, Adeline. That's really great.
Yeah, I think too, it's just like validating the family, right? Like their concerns and their wonderment, they're valid. And what do we need as staff to get to the common goal, right? Because we all have the same goal. It's just how do we communicate to the loved ones essentially to get to that common goal? Because we're not, yes, we may have different ideas, but all of us want the same thing for this individual. And so I think that's kind of the important piece of the puzzle.
That's great. Let's shift a little bit into talking about Direct Support Professional Week as a whole. So, this week is meant to really recognize and celebrate the DSPs who are working, and not just with people with intellectual developmental disabilities, but in all of the service fields. One of the things that I think agencies struggle with and parents is how do you celebrate and recognize the DSPs in your life without crossing boundaries that are in place in that professional relationship? So I guess the first part I would ask of you guys is to tell me a little bit about why is DSP Week meaningful to you and how is recognition meaningful? What type of recognition is important?
I think when somebody notices is the biggest things. Like words are the way to my heart. So like when I deep clean someone's room and the coordinator texts me the next day and says, "Look, like that was amazing that you did that and it made a huge difference and I just want you to know like I noticed and I appreciate it more than anything." That to me is like, okay, I am doing something that is meaningful and it was noticed.
I fully agree. Like, acknowledgement goes a really long way. Just someone telling you that the work you are doing, because I think burnout is really easy, especially when you're on the floor every single day. Like, if you break down the tasks and you try to tell someone that hasn't done it before, like, I cook, I clean, I like look after people, it's not the same as like actually being on constantly. And I think to prevent that burnout, general acknowledgement of like from supervisors or from anyone is just like the work you are doing is actually really meaningful. Like you are making a difference in someone's life.
That's really great point. I think one of the things that I feared when DSP Week started to be a little bit more recognized was that that would be the only time DSPs got recognized, and it was because you're supposed to during that week. And when I was a DSP, one of the things that I found really meaningful was not just that acknowledgement from coworkers and staff, but for an individual to say to me, thanks for doing that with me. That was really hard. And I really appreciate that you helped me get through it. Or a parent reaching out and acknowledging meant way more to me than a boss saying it.
Especially when the parents notice, right? When they come to pick up on the weekend and, you're sitting on the floor vacuuming out the cupboards and I'm like, "Oh, sorry. Welcome to the gas." And they're like, "No, like we appreciate you doing that because we know this person is being taken care of."
And I think, in a lot of ways, it helps us realize that we're not being taken for granted. Some of those everyday tasks that are just part of the job. And I think, Adeline, you said this really well. When you just list out the tasks, people are like, but each one of those tasks has an impact on something else. And all of that makes a big difference. What do you wish people had a better understanding of when it comes to supporting people with PWS?
I mean, at baseline, just that a lot of their actions and necessities that they claim, like they are really not in control of that. It's not like they choose to act like this. They choose to always be food suffering. And I'm sure a lot of the world is rather stigmatized still with a lot of that. They are trying just as hard to get through this as we are trying to help them.
I think from like a behavioral aspect, just remembering that this is all like learned behavior. This is something that they found that works for them. It doesn't mean that like it's the best option for them and they might not even like it themselves, but it's what they have to do to like get what they need.
Oh, yeah, plenty of time they're not even like fully clocked in those moments. They're not they're in reaction a lot of it. And once they come out of it, they realize, you see it in their eyes. They realize what's happened. They realize what they're wrong and everything, and they do actively try and work to help themselves.
I think too, the only thing I think about is when people say, "Oh, that's a Prader-Willi individual," and I have spoken a lot with the individuals I work with, is you are not Prader-Willi syndrome. That is not who you are. You are, Sally with Prader-Willi syndrome. You love to paint, you love to hang out with your friends. Like, this does not define who they are, and I think just the general population viewing them as, like, their own person versus a group, because they're all so different. It's actually incredible how different all of them are.
It's a really, really great point. One of the things that I found when I was working directly with people with PWS in the group home setting, and you guys probably experience this based on your communities and the size of the agencies you work for. So that the number of people with PWS is concentrated in one area. And we would go out in public and people would say, "Oh, they're from that PWS group home." And it used to make me so angry because you're right, it doesn't define them. I was working with an incredible group of women who had many, many, many different talents, just like you guys are. And I wish that the community saw that first and then also recognize that there's things that they can do to help support that person secondary. How can communities, organizations, policymakers do a better job supporting direct support professionals and the individuals that you guys support?
I think just providing opportunities, right? Like, that's gonna be the main piece of it, making sure that those opportunities are provided for individuals and DSP, and, I mean, being able to be compensated. I mean, I feel like that's why we see a lot of turnover, just because there's only a lot of organizations are nonprofit, or they only have so much to provide the services. So I think that's kind of the main piece.
Yeah. The low wages is a huge, huge barrier to people staying, hiring in the first place, but then staying. And I'm a great example. I ended up not staying in those roles because I couldn't financially support my family that way. But it's a huge barrier when you think about the relationships of the people that you're supporting and those people who they become very close to. They see them more than they see their families, are transient in their lives. The disservice that is by not compensating people fairly. One of the things I would love to see happen is for the role of direct support professionals to actually be professionalized. So we call it professional, but we don't compensate people as professionals. We don't view them as professionals. And by we, I mean society. I would love to see that change. They do this very, very well in other countries where, all of the direct support professionals have bachelor's degrees or master's degrees, and they are compensated accordingly for that. And you see less turnover, better outcomes for both the individuals that they're supporting, but also the staff. And I would really love for us to find a way to do that here in the States as well. What have you
Along those same lines, just like the professionalizing of it all, just making sure, I guess, you really know what you're getting into, because being on the floor is much different than, just learning about it in a classroom, sit there for hours and everything, but you're only going to really understand it fully once you're doing it. And I think there should be a good focus on how to do it right.
It's a great point. So, Jessica, you've been a DSP the longest.
Yeah, I was a coordinator for a couple years too at this house. The other thing I was gonna say in lines with, compensation is even if the PC supervisors had support, like, if the organizations had more funds to kinda dump into multiple individuals being leads at these houses or to take some of that pressure off because the coordinators, man, they're doing a lot behind the scenes, and I have a different perspective coming back as a DSP because I am well aware what goes on behind the scenes, so I think that perspective has really helped me kind of relate to the team, if you will, or kind of, like, give some other perspective that maybe wasn't there before.
That insight is really helpful. Over the years, how have you guys been recognized by your agencies throughout DSP Week?
Well, technically, this is my first DSP week. I've only been within the company for since January, but even though I'm on a different side now, I still get acknowledgement and the tip of the hat from people I worked with and from even the higher ups that I'll just be passing around.
This is also my first DSP week. I think, like, the email acknowledgments are somewhat nice, but it means more when it's, like, coming from someone who's seen you on the floor.
Mhm.
Yes, that personalization.
Exactly.
Yep. AIM does a really good job. I mean, they have a picnic, I think today actually, but I have kids, so Um, but they do that and they, like, personally invite, they send out the invite. Even those of us who aren't able to attend if we're on call status or part-time, they still took the time to, "What size are you? We still have a gift for you. We want you to know that we appreciate you." And they are very good at, that day-to-day communication too, over a text. I mean, it's just the way that the world communicates nowadays, but we even have, like, scheduling managers and, "Thank you so much," and they actually take the extra step of somebody calls in and I'll say, "Well, I could leave on my trip later," and they're like, "Nope, you're going on your trip, don't even," like, they are so good about honoring, like, "No, you need to take care of you too, otherwise you're gonna basically be worthless to me," and that in itself is very meaningful to me as a staff.
That's pretty
Definitely.
impressive.
And also there's like at each like increment of the year, there are like little gatherings of the people on the floor. Like I don't know if it's through the company exclusively or if some of it's even just word of mouth, but there's gatherings for everyone who's going through it all, just to kind of take a breath together and talk about it amongst people who understand.
That's really forward thinking when you think about how busy residential life is
Mm,
for people to really purposely set the time aside to do that and support the staff. That's impressive.
Oh,
One of my
definitely.
favorite things that we did when I was at Catholic Charities during DSP week is the administration from our CEO to all the director levels went around and washed all the staff's cars. And it
that's
was
so cool.
it was really
Oh, that's
simple.
awesome.
Everybody had a lot of fun doing it. The staff appreciated it, but so simple.
Mhm.
So from, an agency perspective, if agencies are struggling financially and say, and sadly we've heard this, we don't have a lot of money for that sort of thing. It's a couple dollars for some car soap and buckets. You know, it, there are things that you can do to show staff how much you appreciate them. And we all know something as simple as a car wash is something that very often staff are not taking the time to do because
Right.
their shifts, the long shifts, car washes aren't open a lot of times when they're getting out of work or just really simple. And it was different than the typical let's have a pizza party or order, pizza for every house, that sort of thing. So that was really fun. Other agencies I've heard have done like raffles,
Mhm.
things like that, and gotten creative about how they can do that. And another thing that I've really liked is those personalized shout outs, whether it's through like your full agency communication system or maybe reaching out to the parents of a particular program and shouting out something that a staff has done or something specific with their loved one. I think those things are really meaningful because it also prompts that parent to then reach out to the staff
Mhm.
and thank them or acknowledge what they have done when in some cases they wouldn't have known.
Right.
about
Right.
that interaction. So it gives the parent an opportunity to also just say thank you and recognize. Do you think there's anything else that PWSA could be doing to support DSPs differently?
I don't know the answer to that.
That's okay. We're constantly trying to think about how we can support both the agencies themselves, but also the staff. So if you guys ever come up with ideas that you think that, we could do from an education perspective or even, training with admin. So one of the things that I think I feel very strongly about, I don't know that everybody believes this, but I do think working with people with PWS is a different emotional toll and a
Oh, yeah.
mental toll than it is working with some other intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that means that you have to support those staff differently. And that's difficult, especially for agencies that maybe support 100 people and only 10 of them have PWS. It's really a very small part of their population. But those people end up needing to be supported differently, I think, in order to really help them be their best so that they can be their best for the people that they support. If you could give advice to anyone who's considering being a DSP and working specifically with people with PWS, what would you say to them?
It's okay to fail, making constant mistakes. But the fact is that we're try not to get into your head and understand that it is a learning curve at every step.
That's great
I think
advice.
also that like no day is gonna be the same. You can have a crappy day and the next day is like the best day you've ever had with someone.
I would say too, like, if you are interested in it, like, look into this syndrome because there's so many different moving parts when it comes to it, right? Like, there's the hypothalamus of the brain. So some individuals, they may physically not look like they have Prader-Willi syndrome, but their food drive is there. Also, like, their IQ, right? So some of them have the same IQ as us, and so the support's gonna look a little bit different than somebody who maybe has the mindset of, a five-year-old or an eight-year-old. It just really depends. So I think it's, important to understand how different it can look. Also, during those behaviors, I can honestly say I have never physically put somebody in a hold in all of these years. They have pushed me before, but I was able to just kinda get between the clients and say, "We're we're gonna do this, but I'm not gonna let you hurt, like, your housemate because I can't." And being able to be in a situation that it is unknown, right? It's scary, it can be very elevated energy, and just being able to be confident in what you know and being that consistent resource for them, right? Because a lot of times when they're screaming at me, I just stand there and I get really quiet and I just validate their feelings because a lot of times are we listening to what they're actually saying or trying to explain, or are we looking at the behavior and saying, "Oh my gosh, I need to like de-escalate this right now." Well, there's all these steps that you have to do first. So I think I have seen individuals where they get scared of the client and the client, they sense that they know. And there have been times where I've had to say, "Okay, I need to go take a coffee break or something," and, stepped out for an hour or so. And I think that's okay to like ask for that time when you need it, because when we don't ask for that time and we don't take care of ourselves, that's when it becomes, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Really great
Yeah,
point.
there's no sense in just pushing through to push through.
Right.
If you had to describe your role in one word, what word would you use?
Multifaceted.
Ooh, getting fancy.
Supportive?
I think I would just say consistent.
That's a good one too. I like that. What gives you hope for the future of people with PWS?
The good moments. Like there are sometimes a week before you really hit that with certain individuals, but then once you get back to the good moments, you understand that like it is helping. What you're doing is helping. Not for you specifically in that moment, for them. It is doing something. I mentioned how I'm on maintenance team now, but I still see everybody on the adult side, on the children's side, and they still, wave and they know my name. That was worth it, to still have made a difference to, even though I'm not even working in the same position anymore, they still recognize.
I think too, just the continued education, right? Like we want to learn more. And just looking at 2012 when I started to now at the house I work with, we got a new individual and she's younger, she's in her early 20s. And to see that individual be supported with growth hormone or these things from modern medicine that weren't available or as really known as they are now, it gives me so much hope for this population because when I started, we didn't know how long these individuals were going to leave. We're like, oh man, some of these guys are like pushing 70. This is crazy. And just to know what we know now, right? Like we have more research, we have more resources available. And so that really does give me a lot of hope for this community.
Me too. We know of a really great lady who lives in Massachusetts who turned 75 this year. And when I think back to, when I first started working with people with PWS 20 years ago, that was unheard of.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible, and to just see it now, it's almost like full circle. Because back when I would work with individuals who were younger, they weren't in as stable of a place as I see people come in now, which is really incredible because they're coming in not necessarily in crisis, but really the families just need the support because that's kind of what it felt like it used to be is this person is in crisis, we don't know what to do, where now it's like we just want the best support available for somebody that we deeply care about. And so I think it just looks a little bit differently now too.
My hope for you guys is that you recognize just how important the role is that you guys play in supporting people and being more stable, living longer, living a life that's meaningful to them versus the life that everyone else wants them to live. I feel really strongly that that's something that across the board DSPs do exceptionally well. And there's not a lot of other people in their lives who are helping them navigate that. So thank you guys. You deserve all of the flowers for the work that you guys do. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you guys would like to share about your roles, about working with people with PWS, about people with PWS at all?
I would just say boundaries are important. However, I think it's okay to let them know when I'm just having a hard day or like because then they feel like they can relate to you too because we're not superhumans and honestly sometimes they'll like give me a hug and just be like, "Oh, it'll be okay," or they'll ask me and they genuinely care. They genuinely want to be there for us and how cool that they can be there for us like we are there for them. So I think that's special too.
You
It
make a
also
really good
takes like
point about doing that because I think you have to model that behavior for them. You have to give them the words to be able to say, you know what, I'm having a bad day, and that's okay to have a bad day.
Yeah, and even in those hard moments, the behaviors I have said before, like, "Okay, I'm getting a little upset and I feel my body getting a little tense. I'm gonna take a break. Can you just give me a minute or two?" Because then it's shifting the focus from them to me, and I think that's okay too. I think that's okay.
I was also going to add that it also takes pressure off of them. So sometimes they'll during those moments, like they'll see you reacting like that, and they'll sometimes just blame themselves. They won't understand what's going on. And you could be thinking about something 100 miles away, but right now, this is what you're attitude, and that's all that they're seeing. So by vocalizing, you help them understand you, and like you said, with relating to themselves, you help them understand themselves as well, because you're showing them one how to communicate about their feelings and their emotions, and two, how to distinguish things.
Thank you guys for being with us, for being vulnerable and sharing your stories. I think it's really important for the entire community to hear directly from people who are supporting individuals with PWS what it's really like.
My name's Katie. I work at Latham Centers. I'm the director of wellness there. We're a residential school and facility for students with Prader-Willi syndrome. I think what inspires me the most is the strength that all of our individuals have, and they face so many challenges every single day, but their positivity is inspiring.
I am Gia. I am a lead program specialist for L1. So we are a provider agency. We have some PWS individuals that we work with and we help support. I got into this field because I do social work. So I always wanted to help individuals who aren't able to help themselves, advocate for themselves, just supporting those who are in need, because I've been a person that's been in need, and social work really inspired me from things that I've been through. And then with the Prader-Willi community, they just need the extra support to live, a healthy, normal life. And I think that we can do that.
So my name is Matt O'Sullivan. I work at Latham Centers. I work in the school program as the principal at the school. I started there teaching. So kind of my passion was going to college, was learning to be a teacher. After working at Latham Centers, I went back and got my master's in special education because I really just loved working with this population and seeing them grow and changing every day. So it kind of encouraged me to go back to school and kind of learn for myself so I can provide better care for them.
Yes, my name is Santos Colon. I work for Catholic Charities. We run 3 houses with Prader-Willi. I just love the challenge of every day, having a different day every day. There's never a same day.
I'm Ashley Pulio, and I work at Latham Centers. What inspires me to work for the PWS community is meeting all the individuals and working with their families, and sometimes working with them through what can be a really challenging time, and seeing their success stories as well is just really inspiring for me.
My name is Laura Graves, and I am the Vice President of Residential Services of Advocates in Framingham, Mass. And we are one of the only adult providers in Massachusetts that supports people living with PWS.
And what inspires you to work with the PWS community?
Their intelligence, their love of life, their creativity, their way that they view the world. They inspire me every day.
My name is Morgan Graves. I also work in Framingham, Mass. And I'm a direct support staff for individuals with PWS. And I love to learn more about them and understanding how their mind works to help them be able to reach their goals to the best of their abilities. And it's also amazing to see how much potential they have in different areas. And if you just ask them what they want to do, you get so much more insight into their own goals and their own ambitions. And it's so exciting to watch. I love it.
Yes, my name is Lakeisha Jacobs, and I'm a BCBA at Elwyn, New Jersey, where we serve about 6 residents who have Prader-Willi syndrome. Originally, when I started, I knew nothing at all about Prader-Willi syndrome. And I met one female who was just moving in, and I think it was just a horrible experience for her, which led to her moving out. And then just like her moving back in and like working with her family, just trying to get it right the second time around.
So my name is Ashley Bulger. I am the Director of Marketing at Latham Centers. I would say just sharing stories, sharing their individual stories is really powerful, and just creating like human connection with the stories that we share with the individuals or of the individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome, I think can just impact a lot of people, and their strength and resilience are really good lessons for us, for everybody really. So I think that is really what inspires me.
I'm Patrice Carroll, and I'm the Director of PWS Services at Latham Centers. So many things, but I think that more than anything, it's that these are individuals who are so misunderstood, and they bring so much good and light into this world. And I think if people knew them, they would fight for them. And that's what I want. I want people to know them so they can fight for them.
Thank you for listening to this episode of PWS United. If you want to learn more about Prader-Willi syndrome and how PWSA USA is making strides in advocacy, family support, and research, visit www.pwsausa.org. And while you're there, we encourage you to sign up for our Pulse email newsletter to stay informed about the latest news, resources, and events. Don't forget to subscribe to the PWS United podcast so you never miss an episode. Our team is always available to support families and their loved ones living with PWS 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You can call us at 941-312-0400 or email info@pwsausa.org. Catch a new episode next Tuesday, and until then, have a great week.